Hello, everyone. Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. Today is Monday, the 20th of June, 2022. And today's topic is I'm going to read a letter from a new subscriber who responded to my talk yesterday about how President Biden opened his campaign in 2020 by accusing former President Trump of characterizing the white supremacists at the Charlottesville demonstration riot in 2017 as very fine people. He did not do that. He was referring to the quiet group of protesters who were there simply to, and they had permit, to express their disagreement with the decision to take down the Robert E. Lee statue and rename the park, or express their disagreement with that sort of a motive. So let me read the letter that I got from this new subscriber. And I want to share this with you because I want you to know you're not alone if you're frustrated. I agree that the behavior of Biden, his many supporters, and most of the mainstream media has been very disturbing. Equally disturbing to me, however, is that Biden and the bulk of his party and the media still believe to this day that what he said was true. I'm convinced that Biden honestly feels that sincere, peaceful folks protesting and attacks on our history are evil people, racists who must be silenced. The quiet protesters that President Trump referred to as very fine people are, in Biden's opinion, on par with the violent white supremacists. The fact that those quiet, law-abiding folks won a years-long court case to keep the Robert E. Lee statue in place does not make them any better in Biden's eyes. That only goes to prove to the Democrats' claim that the courts and the laws of this land, from the Constitution on down, are tools of racists to suppress the people. Biden and the bulk of the Democrat Party truly hate this country, its accomplishments, its legacy, and all that it stands for. My concern is this: I see practically no sign that Americans in the moderate camp, the so-called silent majority, are in the least bit concerned about this radicalism of Biden and the Democrat Party. They appear to be content to stand idly by and watch the Democrats tear down all monuments to our history and destroy the Constitution that made this country great. I confess I have no idea who the moderates are. Are they concerned only with their favorite TV shows and the price of gas? Pardon my frustration. My steadily dimming hope is that the middle of the road may wake up if they once see that Biden truly hates anyone who defends this country. But for the last 10 years especially, the Democrats have gone from one extreme to the next. We know this with no discernible protest from the majority of Americans. I want to thank you for your articles. Okay, that's from a new subscriber. So if you're frustrated with Biden, the Democrats, and the attack on Southern heritage, you are not alone. The problem is there are very few people who will defend Southern heritage. One example is the Abbeville Institute. And of course, my blog and my YouTube shows are also defending Southern heritage. But most are afraid to be connected in any way to the Confederacy. For example, I'm convinced that the administration at Washington and Lee University wants to get rid of the Lee name. They're proceeding at their own pace to do that. There are some alumni that are fighting that decision, but they're focusing on defending Lee primarily and almost exclusively based upon what he did after the end of the war to reconcile the North and the South. I think there's a lot of room to give Lee credit for his leadership qualities demonstrated during the war. He was by far the most beloved commander on either side, North or South, during the Civil War, and he earned that respect from his troops by sharing their hardships. While the northern commanders often would commandeer a nearby plantation for their headquarters, customarily Lee slept in a tent or he slept in a hut during the winter quarters. He took total blame, as I've said before, for the defeat at Gettysburg. He rode out on Traveler to meet the soldiers coming back, and he told them, nobody is to blame but me. And I contrast that with what we've seen from Biden after the debacle in Afghanistan. He has called it, he denies it's a debacle. He and his defense secretary and the general that's head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Milley, they all claim that it was a stunning success, a brilliant success. What a lie. Well, so we're all frustrated about this. What can we do about it? One thing I think is recognized by the people at the Daily Wire is we have to change the culture. The culture gradually got this way over decades, 50, 60 years. It's going to take years and perhaps decades to get it back, but we have to change the culture. And the people that are doing that are the Daily Wire. The one problem with the Daily Wire, in my opinion, is that they're still pretty negative on the Confederacy and the South, even though I think that Southerners, particularly in the early years, were the major supporters of the Daily Wire. But you know, anything to do with the Confederacy, they just back away from. It's just toxic. They won't touch it. But the rest of their commentary is good. Their strategy is good, and most importantly, their execution is good. They are the ones that exposed the mistreatment of the rape of a girl by a transgender female at a high school in Loudoun County, Virginia. They exposed that. That probably got Glenn Youngkin elected governor of Virginia. So the Daily Wire is a good place, but it's just not really truly satisfying for those of us that want to defend Confederate heritage. As far as I can tell, most of those guys would just as soon see Confederate statues destroyed. But there are other places like the Abbeville Institute that is defending the South. Now, I also like Dennis Prager as a place for getting information that combats the lunatic left. But he also he won't touch the Confederacy. Anything to do with the Confederacy is taboo to him, is evil, and so we're left to our own devices here. I would recommend, however, Bacon's Rebellion as a news source for what's going on in Virginia. I don't know what their position is, or James Bacon's position, who runs the place. I don't really know what he thinks about Confederate monuments. I don't know. But he is opposed to imposing diversity, equity, inclusion on institutions at the expense of the loss of a meritocracy. He believes in a meritocracy. So that's a good place to go. Virginia, as I had noted in one of my earlier posts, I think is going to be a bellwether state, because that's where so many of the prominent Confederate monuments were destroyed. That's the state where you have a solid base of people in the North that are Democrat because they're government employees. And I would also, that leads me to also make this comment. For those of you that do try and engage in discussions online, almost all of the people involved in those discussions concerning the Civil War and Reconstruction are either retired with comfortable fixed incomes, or they are government employees. And as a result, they are not really impacted by this current economic crisis. And they're able to spend a lot of time arguing and expressing their hatred for Southerners. But those of you that are, the problem is the people that are truly opposed to this left-wing takeover of our government are politically conservative, typically industrious. So they're involved in making their businesses successful, or they're involved in making their careers successful, as opposed to the things that would be considered Southern heritage. But if you look at, and I'm just repeating myself here, but on the other side, you have government employees who have nothing to do but to pat each other on the back and virtue signal to each other about how evil everything about the South is. So I'm getting a little carried away here, but it's basically true. They are government employees with sinecures and job security that makes them insensitive to the economic fluctuations that affect the rest of us. Okay, so let's see if I've got anything else to say. That's basically what I wanted to say. Well, one of the things you can do, and I've said it before, I'll repeat it. If you expect Confederate statues to stay standing, there is no chance of that happening anywhere in this country. If critical race theory and identity politics become the accepted standard within our educational system, if they become the accepted explanations of how our society is organized and how it is shaped. If the critical race theory and identity politics gain that kind of status, you can forget Confederate monuments. They'll all be destroyed. So you can get my book, The Dreadful Frauds, Critical Race Theory and Identity Politics, $16 at Amazon. If you'd like an autograph copy, just email me, Phil, PHIL_Leigh, LEIGH @me.com. Okay, that's our show for today. And thanks for watching. Those of you that want to send me a letter, like the one I read today, and share your thoughts, I'd be happy to take a look at them.